Good evening. I'd like to call the Thursday, July 13th, 2023 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order. Would everybody please stand and follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, can we do the roll, please?
Chairman Muther.
Here.
Vice Chair Schneck.
Here.
Mr. Gutnick.
Here.
Mr. Louie.
Present.
Miss Nixon.
Present.
Mr. Panet.
Present.
Mr. Utley.
Present.
We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Has everybody had a chance to review the June meeting minutes? Okay, do I have a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Thank you, sir.
Second motion.
Thank you. With that, everybody in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Please note that I was not present and I abstained. Mr. Gutnick?
Same here, please.
All right, thank you. Anyone here tonight that would like to speak for a case, to or against, please stand and take the oath to tell the truth, please.
You swear or affirm any statement you give this evening will be true to the best of your knowledge.
All right. John and Carson, any changes to the agenda tonight? Okay, thank you. That then, we'll move on to case number 1, PZ 23-21, final plat, Carlton Meadows West, Section 2, Phase 2A, for review and approval of a final plat under the provisions of Hilliard Code Section 1188.05 and the TARLTON Meadows PUD for subdivision consisting of 21 lots on 9.22 acres. Staff?
Over here, yep.
All right.
So this should be a pretty straightforward case. Like you said, it's just a final plat. Couple pictures here just of the overhead, looking at the general site. Another picture here. All right, so it's just these lots here that are highlighted. The top 4 lots there, the northwest, those are in sub-area A2 of the Tarleton Meadows development plan, and all the properties to the south are in sub-area B. Once again, just another general image of the area. Like to note that all of the lots conform to the development text as far as size and width dimensions. Here's just a general view of the actual plat, what it looks like, including any easements as well as the reserve there. And staff finds that the proposed final plat is consistent with the provisions of the Tarleton Meadows PUD development plan, and staff recommends approval with the one condition on the board.
Okay, are there any questions for staff? Hearing none, is the applicant here tonight, or a representative? Please state your name, please.
Yes, my name is Corey Tarkoff with Rockford Homes. I'm here to answer any of the questions that the commission might have.
Does anybody have any questions for the applicant? Didn't think there would be. Do you have, you saw the one condition and you're fine with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience tonight that would like to speak for or against this case? Please. Please.
Hello, how are you?
Good. State your name,
Great.
please.
My name is Lauren Nickel. I'm a member of the Tarleton Meadows community, and I am here to speak about the maintenance of this community. We continue to approve plots and build and plan more reserves, and the reserves are not being taken care of. Our park has swings with bolts that are missing that are safety concerns for our residents. Our areas are overgrown and run with weeds. We have areas of sidewalk that are missing that are 1 foot by 3 foot. And it's just, how are we going to continue to approve these plots and not hold these builders accountable to maintain our city in a way that serves its residents and is healthy for all the people living there?
Anything else?
Oh, I got more questions, but that's the first one.
Okay. All right. John, do we have an answer for that? I mean, that's the.
Yeah, through the construction process, we occasionally have to work with the developer on those issues, getting trash picked up, if there's dirt on the roads, getting that cleaned up. If there are, usually same thing with missing sidewalks, or if there's things that are broken, during the construction process, they have to fix that stuff. So, yeah, it's pretty routine in terms of dealing with those issues, but it's an ongoing thing while the subdivision's under construction.
Is this the first you've heard of anything?
This is the first I've heard these specifically. I got an email from you
Yeah.
today. So, but yeah, it's, from time to time, we have to go out and do this. We are currently working on enforcement action in a couple of subdivisions over in that area. So it's ongoing. You've seen some applications concerning maintenance in reserve areas as one example. So it's an ongoing effort.
So for like the sidewalks, it's been over 2 years of missing sidewalks and broken sidewalks. And I think as a community, based on the 9 neighborhood texts that went on today, knowing this meeting was happening, where should we be going for these concerns? Because we are going to different people in Hilliard, we're going to the HOA, we're getting unresponsive answers, we're going back to the builder. It just feels like a runaround. So how do we actually get these items addressed when they've been open for years?
The best thing is to use the Hilliard 311 on our website and identify those things.
Yeah.
Street lights are out, sidewalks broken, because that'll get the attention of the crews that go out and do those things.
Okay.
Without that, it's tough for them to know where those are. Sometimes if we notice them, we also, as staff, fill those requests out too.
Awesome. And then for the ponds in the back of that area, are there any plans for like fountains or something to get the water agitated to avoid additional mosquitoes in the neighborhood?
I don't know. Do you know about the ponds? Yeah. Some do have fountains, some don't. Without looking at that, I wouldn't be able to tell you.
Okay. And I think that's all I had. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. All right, is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak this evening? All right, very good. With that, I'd look for a motion.
Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Patton.
regarding case number 1, PZ-23-21, the final plat of Tarleton Meadows, Western Section 2, Phase 2A, I'd like to make a motion to approve the final plat under the provisions of Hilliard City Code Section 1188.05 and the Tarleton Meadows PUD for a subdivision consisting of 21 lots on 9.225 acres with the following condition: that the final plat meet the requirements of the city engineer for format and content prior to being scheduled on a city council agenda.
Yeah, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll, please.
Mr. Panet,
Yes.
Mr. Utley,
Yes.
Chairman Muther, Vice Chair Schneck, Mr. Gutnick,
Yes.
Mr. Louie,
Yes.
Ms. Nixon.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Thank you for being here tonight, too. Appreciate you speaking. Moving on to case number 2. That is PZ 23-22 Mill Run Care Center at 3399 Mill Run Drive for review and approval of a PUD final development plan modification under the provisions of Mill Run PUD for a 7,165 square foot building addition on 6.30 acres.
I have that one. So here's the site is highlighted, and zoom in, you see that area is where the addition's going to be. It's really going to connect the 2 corners you see there. This is looking at the top one's looking at the site from the street, and then this is an interior shot from the parking lot. The yellow areas show the location of the camera for those. This shows the new addition. It's 14 rooms. You can see there's a path connection that will be in that newly created courtyard. So the materials, if you want to pass the material board. So the materials are to match the existing. It's the brick and siding and asphalt shingles will match. So with this there's going to be some changes in the lighting. So there's some pole-mounted fixtures. They're going to go to the building-mounted fixtures for lighting. Those have to meet requirements for lighting when they submit a building permit. There'll be a point-by-point light value plan that gets submitted with that. There's also a few trees that are required for the size of that building addition. 7.2 caliper inches of trees are required. They're going to plant 10 caliper inches of trees, so it'll meet the requirements there. The parking on site, there are 89 spaces. With this addition, 73 parking spaces would be required, so they meet that as well. These are the materials. This is the original landscape plan, so we work with the applicant on the original landscape plan to make sure what they're proposing is consistent with that. This is the light fixture. You see it's a cutoff type. Another thing is this sign is to be refaced. The sign does not meet the current code because it doesn't have the base as a ground sign, but we think it's a good sign. And we're recommending that the sign can be refaced without having the base, just like it is, to show a change of ownership. There's an ownership change on this one, and we think the sign's good. We have talked about some possible sign code changes that'll be forthcoming that will deal with situations like this. This would be consistent with that, what we hope to change. But it's a good sign, and they just need to change that out. So we're recommending that the sign be refaced and kept in the same location. It meets the setback requirements and the area requirements. At the bottom is the former sign. The top is the new sign. You can see in the upper right the location of that sign. It's well back from the property line. Staff finds that the proposal is consistent with the PUD plan and will further the goals of that plan. Staff finds that the modification is not in conflict with the general health, safety, and welfare of the public. Staff recommends approval with, you have 4 conditions listed there. As I mentioned, the ground sign one is highlighted specifically. Do you have questions about any of those items?
I have questions for staff? All right, I don't think so, John. Is the applicant here this evening? Please approach the stand, please.
I'm Ben Payne with MA Design, representing the project tonight. So I think it was a very concise explanation of our project, and here to answer any questions you may have on our submittal.
Any questions for the applicant? Yes.
The 14 rooms that are proposed, are those all single-room occupancy?
Those are single occupant rooms, yes.
This is medical rehab.
Yeah, transitional care, generally, these are rooms allocated to residents or people that have been in a hospital for an extended period of time. They need some physical therapy to get back into their home and their environment. So this is a service that this company provides for outpatient people. So
That's all I had.
Anybody else? All right, thank you. Appreciate you being here.
okay, sure.
Is there anyone in the audience tonight that would like to speak for or against this case? Hearing none, look for a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to propose a motion for Case 2, PZ 2322, Mill Run Care Center at 3399 Mill Run Drive, for the approval of a PUD final development plan modification under the provisions of the Mill Run PUD for a 7,165 square foot building addition on 6.3 acre. With the following 4 conditions. 1, that a site lighting plan demonstrating conformance to the provisions of the zoning code and the Hilliard Design Manual is submitted with the building permit plans. 2, that the proposed exterior materials and colors are consistent with those on the existing building, subject to staff approval. 3, that all permits are obtained prior to construction. And 4, that the ground sign is refaced in the same location to show a change of ownership.
All right, we have a motion and I'll second. Roll, please.
Ms. Nixon?
Yes.
Mr. Louie?
Yes.
Mr. Gutnick?
Yes.
Vice Chair Schneck?
Yes.
Chairman Muther?
Yes.
Mr. Utley?
Yes.
And Mr. Panet? Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to case number 3, PZ-23-23, Reynolds Investment Properties LLC property located at 4400 Reynolds Drive, for review and approval of a Level B site plan under the provisions of Hilliard Code Chapter 1131 to permit 2 24,000 square foot buildings on 4.90 acres. Who's got this one, John? Carson?
This is a request for Level B site plan. So we're looking at the site in the center of the screen. So it's 2 parcels on the north side of Reynolds Drive. This is looking to the south, so you can see the trees that are located generally in the center of the site. To the north, to the bottom of the screen is the Rock City Church and their parking lot. And then you have other industrial properties which are within the Hilliard Technology Park, which is all zoned with a limited overlay and is R1, or it's restricted industrial. The proposed plan has 2 buildings that are both 24,000 square feet with parking around and a service area in the middle. They're proposing 2 curb cuts, one on the south side of Reynolds Drive, and then a second up at the northwest corner of the site where it intersects with the entrance to the Rock City Church parking lot. As noted in your report, there are a number of things with the conditions that we've pointed out for you. One is that sidewalks are required per code in section 909, so that's a condition in your report. We're also requesting that the curb cuts be done to the Hilliard standard drawing, DD-1. And then we've also pointed out in terms of the architecture and screening, the service bay that is faced towards Reynolds Drive requires additional screening. So between that and the architecture, we think there's a solution there that can solve both of those issues. Lighting plans that were submitted need to be revised to meet code requirements, so they simply need to provide the photometric values beyond the property line to 10 feet. So it's not really a major thing. It's just something that needs to be cleared up during the civil drawing review. The light fixtures are very similar to what you just saw with the other project. So they're a cutoff type fixture. And again, the lighting plan is generally okay. It just needs to be modified slightly. What is proposed in your packet, they showed a tree preservation plan or a tree survey. The proposal would basically remove the trees on the site. And so there's a detailed survey that shows the condition and the size of all the trees. The report points out the number of inches. So in terms of the code, we're looking with a 50% reduction that there would be 542 inches, caliper inches that would need to be replaced per code. And we've noted that the applicant submitted for a variance request similar to some other industrial cases that you've had in front of you over the past few months. So that will be moving forward next week to the Board of Zoning Appeals. The landscape plans that are submitted, there's a second variance that was noted. In terms of the zoning standards for setbacks on the northern property line, they meet the side yard setback or the rear setback requirements. But when you look at the landscape code, there's a land use buffer that's required. That is actually 25 feet versus the 20. So because of that discrepancy, there's also a second variance that will go forward to the Board of Zoning Appeals. But we're fairly confident that all of the landscaping that would be required in that buffer can be put into the 20 feet that's there on the plan. The architecture that's proposed is also in your packets. So you have the elevations which are shown on the screen and then a couple different renderings. One of the things that we noted in the report was the 2 elevations that face Reynolds Drive, which would be the ends of the buildings. We recommend that be modified to provide some kind of architectural relief. And we think that given that issue and the screening, that something could be done that addresses both of those issues at one time. And this gives you another close-up of the units. They're intended to be flex space, so very similar to the Weaver Court project that you just saw recently. We're looking at office with additional flex space. And we've noted in the report that the plans need to be adjusted because they identify warehouse space, which is a conditional use. So that needs to be just slightly modified to conform to the zoning requirements. Staff finds that the proposed site plan as amended is consistent with the general intent of the code and the requirements of the LM1 district, and they're also consistent with the intent of the comprehensive plan to provide for flex space. So with that, we recommend approval with the conditions that are noted on the screen, and there are a total of 9 that are in your report.
Any questions of staff?
Can you explain condition number 2, the wing walls and the bay doors? Would that be like a wing wall basically at the end of the buildings, or would each door have those? And is it just for screening, or does it serve a practical purpose other than that?
Similar to what you saw with the Oppenham Data Center, what we're really looking at is having something architecturally, a wing wall that would come off of the building that would actually address the screening and also help to break up the massing of the ends of the building. So there's the potential to deal with 2 code issues or 2 general issues at one time.
Would that go onto the asphalt?
To meet the intent of the code as much as possible, it would necessarily need to go in. Another example would be the Amazon data centers, where you have 2 of the data center buildings side by side, and they have those wing walls that kind of pinch off the ends of the service street that goes through to service all of the equipment.
Well, you'd have those basically on each side, both buildings.
Correct. 1 for each building that would address the screening and then help break up the architecture at the same time.
There wouldn't be sight distance issues and things like that associated with those?
No, we can go back to the site plan. It's really an issue of just bringing something off the end of the building to help screen. It's not going to actually impact any of the turning radius. And that's something that we would verify with the fire department as part of the civil review.
Carson, so if we go back to the previous slide with the, so the ends, these 2 buildings are going to be facing Reynolds Drive, right?
Correct. Reynolds Drive would generally be just off the screen to the right in the bottom.
So I guess what I was wondering about, shouldn't we enhance the architecture of the detailing of those 2 ends with maybe some more windows or fake windows or whatever, to similar to what we've seen at Amazon and some other places, where the side of the building that faces the road is not just like a blank wall, and more architecturally appealing.
Yeah, that's what we pointed out in the report. Whether or not that could be done through the screening, whether that screening wall could be used as an architectural element to address that, that remains to be seen. We'd have to work through with the applicant on that.
But if we made that, well, so if we pass these conditions the way you have it, is that something staff would be sensitive to?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Is the applicant here this evening? State your name, please.
Hi, good evening. My name is Rich Ireland with Dublin Building Systems.
Matt Lonis with Orange Frog Design Group.
Thank you for being here. Do you have anything in addition to what was said that you'd like to tell us?
We do. So there's 9 conditions. We agree to 5 of them and would like to discuss 4.
Okay.
So I'd like Matt, who our architect, you can start with the architecture.
Good evening. I just dropped off, there's 10 copies there, so pass them around. Per what Carson was saying, we did add some windows on the south elevations for both of those. So on that drawing that you have there, you're reflecting of two 15-foot wide by 3-foot tall windows on each end of the south building. So that does break up the mass now. So you have the brick base at the bottom, you have the windows wrapping on the left side, and the windows high on the right-hand side that helps break up that mass. So you get low, medium, and high on those elevations. And with that, with the landscape mounting along Reynolds Road, now you get ability to have different levels of elevation on that. So we think that would satisfy what the staff is requesting for articulation of the south elevations. That's one. The second part of that is the wing walls that Carson is requesting. Those wing walls, we don't disagree that the code requests those. The question is, if you're looking through the rendering up there now, the overhead doors are so close to the end of the building. If you do a projection of a wing wall, then there's going to be an issue with trucks coming in and out, and that wing wall can be damaged. So the question, we like a little bit of relief there in the sense of we have mounding at the street, Reynolds Road, with street trees and landscaping on that. The mounding is between 2 and 3 feet high in those areas with trees on top of that. So if we do screening or not, the curb cut in that location, you're still going to get direct access down this service drive. So we're hoping that with the mounding and the landscaping we have along Reynolds Road, that the wing walls can be, not have to do this.
Can you put the topo up? So basically, you're saying the mounting is acting as a wing wall,
Yeah,
reducing the visibility?
Yeah, on Reynolds Road, we're mounting that up. I believe it varies between 0 and 3 feet, and there's from 0 to 3 feet up and down. And then the trees are on top of that. So we're getting, vertical height as well. So if we would do the wing walls, if you're looking at the drawing you have up on the screen now, how the drive aisle comes in, if you would do a wing wall, you're still going to see down that service drive. And the wing walls coming out is going to make it really difficult to the overhead door users, end users. So we're asking for relief on that.
So when I'm looking at your elevation in particular, when I look at the west and I guess the east elevations, the reason it's that way is because the way you got your man door and your garage door located. If you swapped them out, you wouldn't have that issue, would you?
It would definitely resolve that issue.
So we wouldn't need to, we could keep the wing wall then.
Another option would be to extend the curb out and do trees there versus a true ring wall. So if you see where the curb cut is currently, if you bring that curb cut straight up, you could do a curb and it could be green space. Yeah, right. So there, and on the opposite side, you could bring the curb out and you could do a landscape element on the end versus a wing wall. It would still give you screening as well.
John and Carson, how many more you got?
Those are 2 of the 4. The other option, or the other comment, would be the north access point up by Rock Church. Staff is asking for that access point to be eliminated, so we don't have one access point off of Reynolds Road. Our concern with that is 2-part. With deliveries coming in, they can come in at that entrance and come through the service bay and back out. For a semi or any deliveries to come in from Reynolds Road and have to come through the vehicular parking on either side, the east side or the west side, isn't ideal. We like to keep those 2 service bays separate. So if that would go away, that's one, serviceability for the tenants in there and trucks coming in and out. The second,
At the northwest corner of the site.
that's correct. The other question would be with eliminating that is the fire department access. So right now they have 2 means of access to the site. So if there ever would be an issue with the site, they have the ability to come in 2 locations. This would limit it if one building is on fire, how they'd have to fight it off of Reynolds Road I'm not sure if that's desirable or not.
I didn't follow what you just said. You want to eliminate that drive, which takes you down to one entry.
We would like to keep it. The comment was made, the northwest access point, would like to, staff or the city is asking for that to be eliminated. And we're requesting for it to be kept.
Okay.
And with that, we can add a stop sign at that location, being that it's coming out to a public through street. We can do, whatever the staff would like to see, but to have two access points on the site, we feel is critical for the successful ingress and egress of the site.
These are some major changes here this evening. So I don't know what staff think. I'd like you guys' opinion. You've slept with this more than we have.
In terms of the changes to the architecture, we think that's a good improvement. How the service bay gets screened, we're amenable to whatever the commission thinks would be appropriate for it. In terms of the access point, when we first gave comments to the applicant, we noted that engineering had some concerns about how the alignment of the Rock City Church entrance and their proposed entrance would occur. So there was a suggestion to find an alternate location to put a second access point. If you'll note in your report, we pointed that out, but there's no condition to that effect. We're basically asking that if they're doing the second access point, that they can construct that to the engineering standards that we noted in the conditions for the commercial driveway.
We may have misunderstood the
we
request. Right now, Rock City Church doesn't have a stop sign, and it's a continuous on Reynolds Drive. So I would propose a stop sign at Rock City and our entrance, and then it's a continuous turn as it always has been on Reynolds. But we definitely want to maintain that entrance.
We thought the location of it would be better in that location, so when trucks come in, maybe entering directly into the site versus coming down on a curb cut in the middle of the site. So trying to get alignment issues, resolved. But
Is that all of them?
Lastly is the sidewalk. So, this park was developed in the early 80s, and most of the buildings were built in the 2 decades, 80s and 90s. There are no sidewalks on this street. There was an overlay, I think, placed in 2016 that required that in a lot of these items we're talking about. What we're proposing matches everything in this park. We would be the only property with a sidewalk, and having such a long, frontage, it's very expensive, for one. Rock City Church, I think, was approved in 2016, 17. A portion of their property is on Reynolds Drive, and there is not a sidewalk to the west of their entrance, which was after the overlay was placed.
Carson, you want to say something?
Yeah, we can answer that. The code was actually modified, I think, at the end of last year. In the past, there was a provision that industrial properties could potentially ask for a waiver. In the case of the new code requirements, it is required, even in industrial districts, that all new development put in sidewalks with the development.
So everything we have moving forward is going to have sidewalks?
That is the intent of the code change, yes.
What was done, obviously, in the past, wasn't necessarily what we want to see in the future.
This is the last lot in Hilliard Tech Park.
We got to start somewhere.
And in the future, there'll be redevelopments, and at some point in time, years from now, it'll all connect. Comments or questions, guys, on were there 4 items there?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think with the commercial site, there should be 2 access points. I don't think any commercial sites should have 1. And I think that's a good location where that can be re-engineered correctly for the city standards, and everyone would be happy, including Rock City. I think that could also be done. So I didn't see any conditions where it was listed, but if it's an overall concern, I think this site should have two. It makes sense that the trucks coming in east and west would go out through there as well. I do believe that the sidewalks should stay.
I'll say I agree with all that, and I think I favor the landscaping over the wing walls. But I'm also concerned that we're making so many changes, we might screw things up in the language, so I'm wondering if.
There's a lot of conditions here now.
Yeah.
I'd like to see this cleaned up. I really don't like to see cases coming in with 9 conditions in the first place, and then to be trying to negotiate half of them while we're here just doesn't sit well with me.
Well, I think condition number 2, where it says other appropriate screening method, I think having the curb extension with landscaping in there, it's a solid screen, would be sufficient. So we can work with them on that. That's not a big deal if you're okay with that one. But that condition number 2 allows us to work with them on a suitable solution. And if we can't agree on something, then you'll see it again. But the entrance drive up there at the northwest, that's fine as long as it's designed right, in a safe manner with stop signs or however that has to work. But it's got to have a driveway approach, right? So it doesn't look like a continuous street. So that's not a problem.
That's actually covered under condition number 3.
Yep. And then I think the real difference is the sidewalk. And if you may remember when the lacrosse facility went in, before that went in, there had to be sidewalks put in there. Wendy's, when they did their redevelopment, when it first went in, there weren't sidewalks required along the side streets, and they had put in, Sheets had to put theirs in. Like you're saying, it just started that process. Way back when in the original zoning code for industrial districts, it didn't require them. It allowed planning commission or council to not require them to. They could have approved them that way. But when you start looking at employees who take walks at different times, that kind of stuff, the mobility section in the comprehensive plan recommends these things. So that's our recommendation. I think you made comments. There's also a Board of Zoning Appeals application for a couple of variance items in here too. So it'll get addressed there as well.
I guess what I hear you saying is you think you can work these things out. Which of these conditions need to be changed for them tonight, or do any of them need to be changed?
I'm not sure that they need to be changed, but
Based on the discussion, we will accept to do a sidewalk.
Okay.
It sounds like a hard no. Eliminate it.
I see it.
It may come out of my pocket, but
And I think your other suggestions, if I hear right, most of this group is in agreement with, and I think staff would work with you on those items. You guys okay?
yeah, because the tree replacement is going to get dealt with at Board of Zoning Appeals, which is typical. This has a lot of replacement tree requirements and deserving of a variance of some sort, so that'll get worked out. You've seen a number of those where you approve the plan, and then there's an additional application for variances that kind of finalize the last details on that one. I think we can, if you're good with the architectural changes and the entrance elements and the sidewalk, we're good with that too. So we can work with them on the details on that.
I have a question. As you work out the details, what happens if you guys don't come to an agreement?
It'll come back here if we can't agree on something.
Let me ask John. John, what the applicant gave us tonight on the south elevation for aesthetic purposes, are you willing to accept this, or do you think this could be reconditioned a little bit more makeable for drive-by, you know what I'm saying?
I was asking you that same thing.
I'm asking you that. Otherwise, I hate to ask for a postponement for next month because it looks like we're 9/10 of the way through this already. But I feel it can be redesigned to be a little more appealing for the average driver. This is a warehouse district, but we don't need blank walls either.
Looking at the revised one, can those windows have awning on them like the other thing? Is that a,
It could, but being a second story or a clear story up high, to put awnings on them would feel,
well, the side ones have them, or the lower ones, do they have them?
they do. the lower
Okay,
ones
they're already on there.
Yeah, but the upper ones, so normally what we do is we try to put clear story up high so it doesn't affect anything down low, so the people driving by doesn't see anything stacked against the windows. So those are up high enough to accommodate that, let light in as well, and also break up the elevation, different elevation. If you guys, if you want to see more, we can work with staff. If it's different color patterns.
Preference. I'm only one member of 7. Preference.
Okay.
We've seen 4-sided developments, including gas stations on side of Darby Road that were sharp on all 4 angles. They're all sharp. I imagine your north side is just all plain Jane.
It is.
That's all I had, but I didn't want to hold it up because of my opinion on the south.
Can I assume this group, we would trust John and Carson's opinion on the elevation? Okay, we'll let you guys work out the elevation then. Okay. Any other questions for the applicant right now? So I guess before you sit down, the only thing you're not getting is the sidewalks. Everything else we're gonna work with you on. Okay? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak for or against this case? All right. Hearing none, I'd look for a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion for case number 3, PZ 2323, for Reynolds Investment Property LLC, property of 4400 Reynolds Drive, for approval of a Level B site plan on the provisions of Hilliard Code Chapter 1131 to permit 2 24,000 square foot buildings on 4.90 acres with the following 9 conditions. 1, that the site plan be amended to include sidewalks as required by section 909.02D of the Hilliard Codified Ordinances. 2, that the proposed service area and bay doors be screened adequately per code, architectural wing walls, or other appropriate screening methods subject to staff approval. 3, that the proposed curb cuts and are constructed utilizing a commercial driveway approach per Hilliard Standard Drawing DD-1, subject to the approval of the city engineer. 4, that the site layout is verified to meet the requirements of Norwich Township Fire Department concerning emergency vehicle access and turning radii as part of the civil plan review. 5, that the revised photometric drawings are provided as part of the civil plan review that demonstrate conformance for the provision of the zoning code and the Hilliard Design Manual. 6, that the applicant obtains necessary variances from the Board of Zoning Appeals to reduce required minimum number of tree replacement caliper inches and to reduce the required use of buffer along the north property line to 20 feet. 7, that the landscape plans are updated to meet applicable landscape code requirements and to maximize the number of replacement trees on site in a manner that protects the health and safety of the trees as determined by the city arborist. 8, that the number of replacement trees that cannot be feasibly planted on site will be planted in public parks, open spaces, or as approved by the city arborist. And 9, that all floor plans are modified to identify proposed tenant spaces in a manner that corresponds to the permitted uses of the L-M-1 zoning district.
We have a motion, thank you. Do we have a second? Thank you, Mr. Utley. Roll, please.
Yes.
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 Thank you. Moving on to case number 4, PZ 23-25, Alton Place, Section 1, Phase 2, northeast corner of Bridgeview Trace and Sycamore Trace, and northwest corner of Lakeside Place and Sycamore Trace. For review and approval of a final plat under the provisions of Hilliard Code Section 1188.05 and the Alton Place HCD for a subdivision consisting of 7 lots and 3 developable parcels on 11.682 acres.
All right, for case number 4, we have Alton Place, Section 1, Phase 2. This highlighted area is just showing the general area of where the plat would be on like the general overall subdivision. And then here is what it looks like in reference to Alton Place Section 1 Phase 1, which is already approved and platted. And then here is a view of the overall site, and there's a connection from Bridgeview Trace to Alton Darby that they're going to try to build over here to make another entranceway right over here, but they need approval for that to build over the floodplain. And so it's an issue with the fire department because they only have 1 entryway currently, so they're limited to building 45 building permits on the subdivision until this is built. And this is just the overall view of the subdivision, and the part that's actually being built are these little lots right here that are in sub-area 1, and then there's also these 3 parcels that are in sub-area R3, and there's like reserve F in there too. These 3 parcels are going to be multifamily eventually, but they're just being platted right now for future build. And then they changed it from the 8 lots to 7 lots in order to make the width standards fit their PUD text. And then right here you can see they're going to be building a regional trail that goes from the back of 83, lots 83 and 84 up into Reserve G. And there's going to be an easement in the back of the property for that. So yeah, it's pretty simple. The proposed final plat is consistent with the provisions of the Alton Place HCD concept plan, and it's consistent with the requirements of Code Section 1188.05. They just need to, one more thing I forgot to mention. Some of these parcels are in the floodplain, and the 100-year floodplain, and they need approval to level the grading so that they don't flood. But we recommend approval with conditions that the number of houses available for construction with Alton Place be limited to 45 units in coordination with the fire department until there's that second access point built, and that the final plat meets the requirements of the city engineer for format and content prior to being scheduled on a city council agenda.
Any questions of staff?
I have a quick one. So it sounds like the only new thing after we pass the original plans is the 8 homes to the 7. That's the only change, really.
Yeah, we adjusted it because the PUD text like specified that it had to be a certain width, and it wasn't meeting that, so we adjusted it from 8 lots to 7 lots.
Should the floodplain issues be worked out before we approve?
Yeah, it's FEMA is currently approving them, and that goes along with the condition of approval for meeting the requirements of the city engineer. They require that those issues would be resolved beforehand.
Did you say the multifamily is not part of this, or it is?
So what they're doing is they're just setting up the area where they could be built. So this is if you remember back, there were some brownstone or townhouse type areas. So to make it easier, instead of calling that a lot that looked like a single family lot, we're calling it what's the name of it? Go back to the plat. Right there, so 200, 201, and 202, those are areas where the townhouses can be, but they're not final development plan approved yet. The final development plan for anything in those three will come back here. But we're trying to give, if they've done it right, then they won't have to revise the plat. They'll just be able to bring final development plans for those. So those areas are platted, but it's not finally approved before they can build it. It's unusual. We haven't had a subdivision plat that has those types of things in it yet. This is the first one, just because of the nature of how they're mixing the house types.
Any other questions of staff? Is the applicant here this evening? Or representative? Please approach the
Good evening, Dwight McCabe.
Good to see you again.
Hey, good to see you all. Appreciate you hearing us again tonight.
Do you have anything to add, and are you okay with the two conditions?
Sure, and you know, it's been a while since we've been in here, so if you're interested in a little bit of an update, we can give you that. It's been interesting times with what's going on with COVID and interest rates and all that, but the good news is people are still buying houses. They're buying big houses. It's gone in a direction we didn't really expect. We were expecting houses that would be, you know, a lot of 3 bedrooms, maybe 4, and be, you know, 3,500 square feet, and be, you know, $500,000 to $650,000. The average out there today is over $900,000, and they're 6-bedroom homes, and they're enormous. I just approved 2 plans today for houses to go around the lakes. The first ones, and the first one's $1.2 million, the next one's $1.5 million. So what we are finding is there's plenty of people in Hilliard who want to stay in Hilliard. We're actually attracting people from outside of Hilliard. So there's Dublinites and Worthington folks and Grove City, and you know, it's an interesting mix of who's coming. And they've made a community of it already. It's kind of fun to go out there. Construction's still going on, and people are living there, and they're just extremely welcoming to everybody, and it's pretty exciting to see what's happened. Good news today, it finally dried up enough. We got some bike paths paved. I've been trying to do this since November of last year, so that's a big day for us. And so the residential side, anyway, is going well. Fisher, actually today, John, I was going to have to talk to you about this. 2 of the lots, let's see, 87 and 88, which are currently shown at 86 feet wide. Fisher's already got buyers for all of these lots, and they're all the bigger houses. So what we think we're going to need to do is kick the lot to 88 feet, each of those, and take it out of lot 89. There's plenty of width there to do that. So feel like it'd be best to accommodate them. That way they can continue to have side-loaded garages there instead of pulling them to the front. So it's just a better planning circumstance. So really doesn't affect anything. The sewer lines and everything still line up, and it kind of works. So if that's okay, we'd like to make sure that gets done. There's 25 houses, I think, that have been approved or are in the final permitting stages. I think there's 8 folks, homeowners living out there already today, and the activity is pretty healthy. The other things happening on the village center side, I actually have a meeting tomorrow. I think we'll be back here in front of you all with the final development plans for south of Roberts Road for all of the commercial retail buildings south of Roberts. That should happen as soon as plans get fully developed, so it could be 60 days or so. But good news is we got those loaded already. There's tenants for all of them. There's also a plan should be heading your way for a a kind of an upscale convenience store on the northeast corner of Roberts and Alton Darby. There's a lease in place, there's a contract in place for that land, and a little gymnastics. It turns out we feel like that's a better place. I think everybody feels like it's a better place to do that kind of use instead of on the village center side. So that's going ahead. And then we have a meeting tomorrow. We have a letter of intent for all of the urban housing that's north of the village center. We have a letter of intent to do all of those. There's 168 units, and tomorrow, if I see a plan that I'm okay with, we'll sign a contract, and again, by year end, there'll be a developed plan in front of you for those. So in short order, we don't have anything left to sell. All of the single family residential lots are contracted. So, yeah, it's, it's been a haul, but it's coming together, and I think everybody's well pleased out there what's going on today. So,
I have questions.
Hmm?
Obviously, they're not related to the case, but hey, he's here.
Sure.
So with the commercial stuff, first of all, can you remind me? I remember there's that little loop that I think connects to Roberts Road. The commercial stuff was like on the south side of that, right?
It's both. So on the south side, what we look for there are users that are more car-oriented, because we're really not doing drive-throughs or anything, but there's pickup lanes and things that can happen there. There's actually, we have coffee folks that are dying to do a remote drive-only dual-lane coffee kiosk. And there's 4 national players that are auctioning themselves into that right now, so we'll do a ground lease and do that. But we have restaurants down there. We have ice cream shop. We have a dentist. We have a pediatrician. We have just there's lots of folks now that are waking up to what this really is intending to be. So feeling pretty good. I think as soon as we see things going vertical out there, it won't be long at all to finish out the rest of it. So
That was my follow-up question. I was going to ask what kind of businesses you got going. Plus, I was out there last weekend checking it out because I know someone who moved in, and he wants to know all the details behind it. So I tell him whatever I know. So I know more.
Yeah. Well, I haven't talked to the neighbors because some of those folks, they actually are better at pitching it than I am. They really know some stories. There's a fella out there, the first buyer actually. He's a tech guy. He's got a drone. He's got YouTube video channel. He flies this thing all the time, and he's got a great narrative. I mean, he tells me about it, and he knows more than I do, it seems. So,
My friend's just pumped his kids can walk to school. So.
Yeah, perfect.
Mr. Chairman, just as clarification, Dwight mentioned some of the lot lines that might get adjusted. So in our conversations early on with, it was just that very thing. Either some of these lines could get adjusted to accommodate some of those, or setbacks would have to be pushed further back into some of those narrower lots. And they wanted to keep the build lines more consistent. So we'll work with them on that before it goes to council and get the lines right. But it will be the same number of lots, and it'll look largely just like you have there.
All covered by item 2.
Yes.
And that was my question to staff too. You just answered it, John. Are you comfortable with the lot line changes at this late in the process?
Yeah, because we figured there would have to be some minor adjustments, just based on the size of the houses that there's some of them that are coming in, and there's room to move them. It only needs a few feet for each one, so it's not a big deal.
Because we're very used to everything being copacetic by the time it reaches the semifinals. All right, if you're comfortable with that.
All right, any other questions for the applicant? Good. All right, thank you for coming. Thank you for the update.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Is there anyone in the audience tonight that would like to speak for or against this case? Hearing none, I'd look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve case 4 PZ-23-25 Alton Place Section 1 Phase 2 at the northeast corner of Bridgeview Trace and Sycamore Trace and northwest corner of Lakeside Place and Sycamore Trace for the approval of a final plat under the provisions of Hilliard Code Section 11.05 and the Alton Place Hilliard Conservation District for a subdivision consisting of 7 lots and 3 developable parcels on 11.682 acres with the 2 conditions. Number 1, that the number of houses available for construction within Alton Place be limited to 45 units as agreed upon with the Norwich Township Fire Department until such time as a second access point is provided from Bridgeview Trace to Alton Darby Road. And number 2, that the final plat meets the requirements of the city engineer for format and content prior to being scheduled on a city council agenda.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Chris. Roll, please.
Vice Chair Schneck,
Yes.
Mr. Gutnick,
Yes.
Mr. Louie,
Yes.
Ms. Nixon,
Yes.
Mr. Panet,
Yes.
Mr. Utley,
Yes.
and Chairman Muther.
Yes.
We have a quorum. Or, I'm sorry, motion carries 7-0.
Okay. Well, that takes us through our cases. We're at discussion items and communication. Anybody got anything? I got one thing. You Tracy, you got anything?
I went to the Parks meeting yesterday, which was, oh, I'm sounding funny too, which was held at the Hilliard Family Aquatic Center, the pool that's not the East Pool. And does it have a name? I don't know. But they held a design charrette because apparently the mechanicals in that pool are reaching their end of life in like 2 to 5 years from now. So, because nothing in planning's ever easy, you know. Like ideally, we'd have the new wellness center up and running. We'd figure out what the aquatic amenities are there, and then redesign this thing to, you know, bounce off of that. But no, they're failing in 2 to 5 years, so we need to like plan for what's going to go there now, and trying to figure out what do people want, you know. So.
Thank you for sharing that. It's one thing I'd like to share is a lot of us that are on this commission and folks that are on staff used to work with John Briner. John passed away 2 weeks ago. John sat on council for a number of years, also sat on this commission. I took his spot when he left quite a few years ago. But John was instrumental in what this city looks like right now. So he was a good citizen, a good man. So very well said. Anybody got anything else? Hearing nothing else, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Thank you.